is possible that the ancient astronauts taught the Egyptians that mummification was a way of preserving their genetic information in the DNA.
When people think of ancient Egypt, one face rises above all others: the golden mask of a boy who ruled for less than a decade, yet became the most famous pharaoh in history. Tutankhamun did not conquer distant lands. He did not build massive temples, and he did not leave behind sweeping political reforms.
There's something very obvious missing because there's no heart. The absence of the heart might suggest that Tutankhamun needed immediately attention somewhere far from where the top-class embalmers were.
For more than 3,000 years, his name was nearly forgotten. And yet, when his tomb was opened in 1922, it became the most important archaeological discovery of the modern era. What the world did not realize at the time was that the greatest secrets of King Tut were not hidden in gold, but locked inside his own body. For decades, historians argued over how Tutankhamun died. Some believed he was murdered. Others thought he was killed in an accident. Still others suspected disease. But without modern technology, there was no way to know for sure. His mummy had been badly damaged during the original excavation, and early examinations were crude by today's standards. Then in the early 2000s, Egyptian scientists launched the first large-scale genetic study of royal mummies. Their goal was simple but unprecedented: to trace family relationships, identify inherited diseases, and finally determine what killed the most famous boy king in history. What they found shocked the historical world. Tutankhamun became pharaoh at around 9 years old during one of the most unstable periods in Egyptian history. His father, Akhenaten, had radically changed Egypt's religion by forcing the worship of a single sun god, Aten, and shutting down the powerful priesthoods of traditional gods like Amun. Temples were closed, wealth was redirected, and the political balance of the empire collapsed. When Akhenaten died, the kingdom was fractured and vulnerable. Tutankhamun was placed on the throne by powerful advisors who quickly reversed his father's religious reforms. His name was changed from Tutankhaten, meaning living image of Atenen, to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun, signaling a return to traditional worship and political stability. But behind the public image of restoration and renewal, Tutankhamun himself was physically weak. His tomb contained more than 130 walking sticks, many showing clear signs of use. For years, scholars assumed they were ceremonial. DNA analysis later revealed they were medical necessities. Tutankhamun suffered from a severe clubfoot, making walking painful and difficult. His bones showed signs of chronic disease, and his immune system was compromised. The genetic tests revealed something even more disturbing. Tutankhamun was the child of incest. DNA sequencing confirmed that his father was Akhenaten, and his mother was Akhenaten's full sister. This kind of royal inbreeding was not unusual in ancient Egypt. Pharaohs believed they were divine, and keeping bloodlines pure was seen as a way to preserve sacred legitimacy. Marriages between siblings, half-siblings, and close relatives were common within the royal household, but the biological consequences were severe. Tutankhamun's skeletal deformities, fragile bones, and immune weakness were likely the result of generations of intermarriage. The royal family's obsession with divine purity had quietly created a genetic crisis inside the dynasty. Further DNA tests showed that Tutankhamun also suffered from malaria. Traces of the parasite were found in his blood, meaning he was infected shortly before his death. In a healthy adult, malaria can be survivable. In a teenager with bone disease, physical deformities, and a weakened immune system, it can be fatal. His death, it now appears, was not caused by murder or accident, but by a combination of inherited genetic disorders and infectious disease. The Golden King was dying long before he ever reached adulthood. This revelation reshaped how historians understand his short reign. Tutankhamun was not simply a symbolic ruler guided by powerful advisors. He was a physically fragile teenager trying to govern a destabilized empire while suffering from chronic pain and illness. And his family tragedy did not end with him. Inside his tomb, archaeologists found the mummified remains of 2 stillborn daughters. Both were likely born prematurely or with fatal genetic defects. Tutankhamun and his wife Ankhesenamun, who was also his half-sister, were unable to produce surviving heirs. With Tutankhamun's death around age 19, the royal bloodline of Akhenaten effectively ended. Egypt's throne passed into the hands of military leaders and court officials, marking the end of one of the most controversial and turbulent dynasties in Egyptian history. For over a century, Tutankhamun was known primarily for the spectacular treasures buried with him. Solid gold coffins, ceremonial weapons, chariots, jewelry, and the iconic funerary mask that became the face of ancient Egypt itself. But science revealed that beneath that image of divine perfection was a young man whose body was failing him from birth. His burial, though lavish, was also unusually small for a pharaoh. Many experts now believe his tomb was not originally intended for him, but was repurposed quickly after his unexpected death. The rushed burial supports the idea that no one expected the king to die so young. Even the condition of his mummy reflects this urgency. Large amounts of resin were poured over the body during mummification, possibly as a ritual attempt to preserve him for the afterlife. But this also caused severe damage to the remains, complicating later examinations. Ironically, the same royal traditions meant to secure eternal life may have contributed directly to his suffering and death. The DNA findings did more than solve a medical mystery. They forced historians to reconsider the cost of divine kingship. Ancient Egypt is often remembered for its grandeur, engineering, and spiritual depth. But Tutankhamun's genetic profile exposes the darker side of absolute power, where political legitimacy was valued more than biological health. His story is no longer just about gold and curses and lost tombs. It is about a system that demanded perfection while quietly destroying its own heirs. Modern science gave Tutankhamun something he never had in life: a voice. Through his DNA, he tells the story of royal isolation, inherited disease, and the fragile reality behind divine authority. He was not simply a symbol of ancient splendor. He was a teenager burdened by expectations, illness, and a dynasty already in decline. 3,000 years later, the truth written in his blood may be more powerful than anything written in stone. And it reminds us that even the most powerful empires are still governed by human biology, human decisions, and human consequences.